What if in just 3 months you can completely change your entire life? What if every single day for the next 3 months you set and achieve the most important goals that you have for yourself? How different could life look? What if you woke up and started to take control of your own destiny? What if everything you're looking for starts right now and you just gotta get going? What if by choosing to invest in yourself and focus on your own momentum, you were able to build and create something special? What if you were able to create and build something in the next 3 months that would change your life forever? What if the goals you set today, what if the momentum you build right now, what if the decisions you make in this very moment, what if your truest potential is far beyond even what you thought it was? What if by focusing on winning small moments, goals, then days, then weeks, then months, you could be different? You could set the tone. What if you were able to break generational curses? What if you were able to be different? What if you were able to take care of your family? What if you were able to take care of yourself? What if you understood that the power of momentum lies within you and all you gotta do is unlock it? If all of this was true, how high would you set those goals? How far would you set your reach? What if I told you that every single day for the next 3 months, you would be given the option to make the decisions before you actually got in the moment? How much better could you truly become if you locked in that way? How much farther could you go? How many people could you help? What sort of impact could you create if you would only start to build a little bit of momentum? And what happens when that momentum that starts tiny builds into a massive flame? What happens if it's within you? You just gotta unlock it. Today we want to talk about the idea of building momentum. For most people, the road to greatness isn't gonna be a track meet. It's not gonna be a sprint. It's gonna be a slow and steady grind. It's gonna be a stairway. But in order to get up those steps, you gotta take them one step at a time. And eventually, much like a child learning to walk, you'll go from 1 steps to eventually you can take 2 at a time, and 3 at a time, and 4 at a time. And so today we wanna talk about and focus on the idea of momentum. Because how exactly would it feel to consistently perform at your best? What does it do to the mind of a person who's used to underachieving, but every single day for the next 3 months, finished every single thing they said they would, no longer procrastinated, set goals that were reachable and attainable, smart goals, specific goals, goals with a time limit, because we know that if we don't have a time limit, it probably won't get done, or it won't get done with the same level of urgency. If you were able to do that for the next 3 months and it's something you aren't used to doing, you're gonna create something special. You're gonna become even better than you thought you could, and it's gonna lead to a lifetime of change, of improvement, of just being better. And it's gonna spread to the people who you know and love, because that sort of light is contagious. That sort of goodness is the type of thing that spreads without you having to say a thing. But it first starts with you, and it first starts with the tiniest moment. And so whether we're talking about stacking moments upon seconds, upon minutes, upon hours, upon days and weeks and months and years, it's gonna look different for everybody. The pace I move at and the space I move around is gonna look different than yours. But we all can build and create our own momentum. So what are you doing about it? All we're talking about is just building and moving forward in some consistent pattern. And the consistency is key, because most people can string together one good performance, one good day, one good moment, one good whatever. But who can be consistent and string them together for a while? Most people, if you ask them what their goals are today, they probably don't even have one. If they do, it's up here and it's not even written down. What's the difference between something you actually take the time to write versus something that's just in your head? It's called an idea. There's nothing wrong with ideas, but ideas come and go. When you're serious about something, you take the time to write it down. When you care about something, you take the time to make it real by putting it into writing. And there's something to be said about writing something with your hand. When I write my goals, when I write down the things I want to do, I'm doing it by hand. That's not law. That's for me. That works for me. Now, there is research and data that will show you there's power behind actually writing things. We retain things better, we retain things more when we actually write them with our hands. But as long as you have some system of tracking and keeping up with your goals, and most importantly, keeping yourself accountable, you're gonna build the momentum. And that's the other thing about building momentum. It's inevitable. It's gonna happen regardless of whether or not you're intentional. You might build a ton of momentum towards nothing, towards becoming a slob, towards being lazy, towards getting out of shape, towards spending too much money, towards being undisciplined. Or with that very same energy, with the very same intention and opportunities, you could build your body, you could develop your mind, you can evolve into a better person, you can see better outcomes if you're intentional, and if you can stack these small moments upon days and weeks and months and years. But it starts small, and then we build from there. When you think about these massive companies, Apple, Nike, Google, whoever, they didn't start off as these massive entities. They started off really small, maybe in somebody's basement, maybe in somebody's brain. But eventually, they decided it's not enough for me to just think about it. I got to start to build upon it. Even the idea of setting out and planning and creating your goals is momentum. Because when you create a plan, when you create structure, when you know exactly what it is you're doing, and all you have to do is execute, you just made the process that much more efficient. There's no law saying that you can't simply go out into the world and achieve all the things you want and write nothing down. You don't have to. But if you're like most people, you need to be organized. If you're like most people who don't have a photographic memory or who aren't super hyper focused, motivated, dedicated, you probably need a system of just organizing things. And if you can do that, you can execute. When you go to work for an employer who's effective, they generally have a really good game plan laid out for you. And if they don't, momentum is going to be lost. If you work on a production line, there has to be a plan. When one person does their job, the next person is able to do theirs, and so on and so forth. Well, one or two people is something. But when you got thousands of people working in a factory, you can build trucks, you can build cars, you can build planes, you can build buildings. But it starts with the plan. It starts with structure, and that's what's going to allow you to build the momentum you seek. Most people are seeking long-term success and long-term happiness. And momentum doesn't just have to do with business and money and finances. It's everything. Going to the gym and getting fit. We know that our bodies, we know that our physical is really important in order to make our minds work. What are the chances that an unhealthy body is going to produce a really fit brain? Your body is composed of the things that you put into you. So if you're constantly putting good things into you, that momentum counts. This is a really beautiful thing, because the same way you can't outwork a bad diet, you also can't cancel out the results of weeks and months and years of really good eating. And so to me, this is a really good thing, because while in some ways it does appear to be a double-edged sword, whereas you can't outwork a bad diet, well, the opposite is also true. The inverse is also true. If you can't outwork a bad diet, that means you also can't outrun a good diet. If you've been eating really good, really healthy, really clean for the last week, month, year, that momentum counts. Your cholesterol is going down. That counts just as much as the bad food counted. And so do you want a longer, healthier, fitter, stronger life? If so, you got to start somewhere, and then you got to build the momentum. And the thing about momentum is it's really closely related to consistency. How can you build momentum if you aren't consistent? And again, this is one of those things where one way or another, you're going to be consistent. Are you going to be consistently good, or are you going to be consistently bad? When we talk about momentum, we're talking about moving forward, evolving as a person, embracing each day with gratitude and actions that reflect that gratitude. How can a person ever hope to upgrade and receive more if they aren't even grateful for what they have? If you won't appreciate and take care of the blessings you've already been receiving, why would you ever be blessed with more? Why would the universe ever smile upon you and give you more when you don't appreciate the little you already have? It's not going to happen. You gotta be better. And so when I talk about gratitude, I'm not just talking about a thinking or a feeling. I'm talking about actions that push you forward. Gratitude is a huge part of momentum. Gratitude is what's gonna fuel those actions that push you forward. Because you appreciate the things you've been given, because you understand and recognize that not everyone has been so fortunate, you'll be a much better steward. You'll appreciate it far more than a person who doesn't see it that way. You'll be able to build even more of that oh so precious momentum we talked about. The other thing you got to understand about momentum is it's only really possible over time. You can't be consistent in one moment. You can't be consistent in one day. A day is a really good start, and momentum does start from a tiny seed. But eventually you got to keep watering that seed, or it won't grow to reach the heights that it really could and should. Eventually you got to show up day after day, week after week, month after month. There's nothing worse than feeling like you're running on a treadmill of life. Like you're working really hard, but you're getting nowhere. Well, that's what happens when you're inconsistent. When you choose not to show up for yourself, what does that do to you? When you choose not to show up for yourself, when you choose not to follow through on what you committed to, when you choose not to be the best version of you, you start to lose trust in yourself. You start to lose faith in yourself. You start to lose the ability to execute. It starts to become a habit. It stops being a thing you did one time, and it starts to become a part of your character. Momentum doesn't have to be a good thing. Momentum is a neutral thing. It's not good or bad. You get to choose the direction of your momentum, but either way, it's something. Even if you think you're being stagnant, time is moving forward. So even if you're standing in place, if time is moving forward, somehow, some way, the physics of it is saying you're not in the same place anymore. You just lost a little bit of time. Well, if you lost a little bit of time, but you're still the same you, if you lost a little bit of time and a little bit of money, if you lost more time and more opportunities, at what point do you start to turn it around? At what point do you start to wake up and realize it's up to me to start to build this momentum in a good way? Because again, momentum is neither good or bad. We want to focus on building positive momentum. When we talk about momentum, we're talking about building in a positive way towards your goals, towards the things you care about, towards the things you say are important. Momentum is a choice. You're not going to win every single battle. You're not going to win every single game. But how do you react after one loss? What happens when a person who is used to being perfect, undefeated, unblemished, whatever the case may be, what happens when that person finally experiences a setback? Do they allow that setback to ruin them? Oftentimes, people who are really used to winning and finally lose, they break and crumble. They're not able to handle it. Maybe you're not as strong as you think you were, but how do you handle the L? And the same is true for the reverse. What happens when you finally start to win? What happens when you look at that scale and it finally goes down a few pounds? What happens when your pant size is smaller and your shirts fit better? What happens when you feel fitter and stronger and healthier? Do you build on the momentum? Do you build upon the win? Or do you slide back into your old ways? And again, momentum is a choice. And that brings me to another point about momentum. Momentum is not linear. Momentum can go up and down, left and right, back and forward, whatever direction you choose to allow it to go in. And sometimes it's not even in our will. But what do you choose to say about the direction of the momentum in which you're going? Maybe you got to experience a few days or weeks or months of hardships. What do you tell yourself about that? That's going to determine your momentum. Because even if you're on a negative downturn, even if things are going bad, your ability to have perspective, your ability to choose the way you handle your momentum, the way you focus on your goals and your daily, that's going to determine just how far you slip, just how hard it gets, just how bad you become. It's up to you. Sometimes we go through bad in order to make us better. You don't become stronger by lifting light weights. You get stronger by increasing that resistance. You get stronger by pushing through and enduring. And it's not always fun, but if you can get through it, you become something better. You become a different thing. You become a person who's evolved into your best self, or at least a better version of yourself. And that's all we're talking about. Momentum is about showing up every single day just a little bit better than you were the day before. You don't have to be miles and light years better. Just a little bit. So many people quit before they reach the goal because they think and measure their momentum in terms of something that's not even realistic. If you're trying to go miles every single day when you're only capable of inches, you won't appreciate the distance that you did go because you're focusing on the amount you didn't. You got to focus on what's important. That's what's going to get your momentum going in the right direction. Perspective. That perspective is what keeps our momentum going in the right direction. So whether we're going up, whether we're going down, we get a say in how fast or how slow we go. So make sure you're being conscious of it and make sure your perspective is the right one. Is your perspective one that's going to lead to prosperity, or is it going to be one that leads to complaint and negativity? Is your perspective one that's consistently leading to you executing on those goals every single day because you know the small goals are what matters most? Or is your perspective one that I can get it later? I'm not going to set a deadline. I don't need to make goals. You don't get to complain about the results you didn't get from the work you didn't do, from the urgency you didn't have, from the discipline you didn't choose to exercise. Because at the end of the day, why would you ever let one loss turn into a pattern? Whether or not you chose to let that one loss turn into a pattern or allow that one victory spark and fuel your momentum in a good way, either way, the choice is yours. Either way, you got to choose what your fate was. When you understand momentum, you understand that life isn't a perfection competition. It's not about who can be flawless or perfect or never make errors or never make mistakes. How do you view those mistakes to begin with? How do you bounce back from them? What do you tell yourself? And then what do you start to do once you took the L? Every single one of us is going to take an L, full stop. Every single one of us is going to take a loss or make a mistake or experience a downfall. But what do you do with it? The momentum going down doesn't have to be hypersonic. You can accelerate and extend that time you spend going down by having the wrong mindset. Or you can speed up the amount of time it takes in order for you to get out of it and become your best. Momentum is simply a measure of your own consistency. How much will you commit to you? How much can you trust you? How much will you follow through on what you promised and committed to for you? Imagine having a high level of expectations or trust or belief or dedication or whatever to anybody else, but not keeping that same energy with yourself. And so many of us fall victim to this. So many of us quit on everything. Build the momentum. Give yourself some time. Rome wasn't built in a day, and you're not going to build your empire in a day. And your empire doesn't have to be a literal empire. It could be getting your family back intact. It could be getting your health back on track. It could be getting that degree. It could be learning that trade. It could be developing a skill. Whatever. But it probably won't happen overnight. Most things that are worth having take a little bit of effort. Most things that are worth keeping take a little bit of effort. So what effort are you putting into them? How consistently are you showing up? What does your momentum look like? Which type of momentum are you choosing? Forward or backward? Upward momentum, or are you going rock bottom? It's up to you. You're choosing every day, good or bad. One of the harshest and ugliest things about this whole momentum conversation, think about how hard it is to start from zero. Just speaking from my own personal experience, one of the hardest feelings to overcome, one of the biggest obstacles people face is starting from zero. But we all gotta do it. And so whether you're starting from zero for the first time, the 5th time, the 100th time, the 1,000th time, the fact that you still got another moment is enough to be grateful for. The fact that you still got another chance, that you're still breathing, still in the right mind to be able to do something about it, means that somebody is trying to give you a chance to make it better. Why don't you take it? What would happen if you did? What would happen if you took you serious? What happens when we decide, nah, no more, no mas? That's when change comes. Sometimes that momentum, sometimes the change will come from a place of negativity, from not wanting to be at this low place anymore. Sometimes that's what it takes. Other times it might come from a place of inspiration. You want to reach something. You got a dream or a goal, and you're aspiring to reach these new heights. Whatever the case, start to build the momentum now so that you can see the fruits of your labor later. If we know that each and every one of us only have a finite amount of time on this earth, every single day that you waste, every single moment that you waste, that's one less day, one less moment, one less hour that you get to spend living in the results of your success. That's one less day, moment, year, week, month that you get to live the life that you know you're capable of, that you know you truly desire. If you're like most humans, you're gonna face challenges. It may feel like you're starting from zero, but how you choose to look at that zero is up to you. Zero is not negative. Zero is a blank slate. Zero is an opportunity, but it's an opportunity for good and bad. It's an opportunity to go negative or positive. Your zero doesn't have to be a bad thing. You can make it into a good thing. Shift the momentum into the good way as opposed to focusing on what's not right. And when it's gratitude that's fueling your mindset, your movements, and your momentum, things are generally going to work out for you because you understand just how precious and important this moment is. That's why you'll be able to take advantage of it. That's why you'll build the momentum. Another thing about momentum is it can be broken really easily. If you're a person whose trust has been broken and you're looking for consistency, all it takes is one time and your trust can be easily broken just like that. And it may feel like the momentum is lost. If you've been going to the gym consistently, doing what you need to consistently, and then you have 1 week where you're eating pizza and you're eating bad and you're not going to the gym and you're not doing what you should do, you stopped eating the veggies, you stopped eating clean, that 1 week can throw off the whole rest of your life if you allow it to. It's really easy to get off track. Just because you're going good doesn't mean it can't go bad, but the more you build towards the good, the more momentum you build towards the positive, the more you'll be stuck in a good way in that mode. You'll be stuck in a positive momentum type of mindset. You'll be stuck in a gratitude type of position. And that's a good place to be in. Generally, when we think about the idea of being stuck, it's a bad thing. But what if you were stuck in gratitude? What if you couldn't not be thankful for where you are? You would achieve everything. You would achieve all of your goals because you would appreciate the time you've been given. You would know how precious it is. You would know that not every single one of us is going to wake up tomorrow. That not every single one of us is going to get another week or day or month or year. And if they do, it may not be a healthy one. It may not be one of happiness. It may not be one that's fulfilled. So the fact that you got this time here and now, you got to get moving. Go. Start off small, start building reps, and eventually you'll build that momentum and it'll start going in a positive direction. If you can simply start off small and build consistency and repetition. That repetition, that discipline is going to lead to greater and greater results as you're able to consistently do it. It's one thing to go to the gym once. You get a little stronger, you get a little better, you get a little fitter. But we all know there's a difference between the person who goes once a year, maybe New Year's when they're starting off that resolution, versus the person who goes 3-4 times a week for an entire year. And the person who's been going for 2, 3, and 4 years. It's up to you. What are you choosing for yourself? I've talked in previous videos about how important it is to set really specific, measurable goals that you can actually take action on, that are realistic, and that have some sort of time base. But another thing that you might want to keep track of are the distractions in your life. I'm not saying to never play video games. Sometimes I play video games. There's nothing inherently wrong with social media or video games or TV or movies or whatever form of entertainment or distraction you may choose. But if you know for a fact that you aren't where you should be, if you know for a fact that there are things you could and should be doing and you're not, those things can become like time vampires, and they will literally drain you of time and opportunities to get it. And not only that, but it may even drain your mindset. They may make you lazy and complacent. They may make you comfortable and lazy and distracted and emotional and upset and everything other than grateful for the opportunity that you've been given. I'm not saying that you got to eliminate these things, but you do got to be aware of them, or whatever the thing is that takes your time away from what it is that you do. Because if you can limit the things that don't help and double down on the things that do, why wouldn't you win? What if instead of just freely playing video games, you told yourself, I won't play video games until every single one of my goals for the day are completed? It's not that you can't play the game, but play the game once you got the work done. Because if there's one thing that we know for certain, whether it's video games or social media or TV or whatever, these things are designed to pull your attention, to steal and sap your time. What are you doing with your time? And so if you spent 4 hours a day playing a video game, but not 4 hours focused on those goals, you don't have a right to complain about the results you didn't get from the time you didn't spend on the goals that you claim were important. What are you doing with your time, and what are you doing with that momentum? There's a huge difference between an hour reading and an hour doom scrolling. There's a huge difference between an extra hour of sleep versus an extra hour of TV. There's a difference between spending an extra hour with your loved ones versus an extra hour on technology or distracted or doing whatever. Either way, the hour is going to pass. Either way, the time is going to shift one way or another. And either way, momentum is going to take place one way or another. Which way are you tipping the scales? And you are tipping the scales one way or another. How you choose to consistently react will determine your ability to build momentum in the direction that you choose. And it's so important that you don't underestimate the small steps, because those, more than anything, are what creates the momentum. The small moments of discipline, those small moments where you said no to having fun and instead chose to put in the work. The small moment where you decided to get a little bit smarter by reading up on a subject. The small moments where you decided to take the time to listen to somebody. You built momentum even within a relationship. But you got to choose it. You got to choose to win those small moments, because you can't get the momentum without the consistency and without winning the small moments. I talk a lot about small moments and goals because they're so important. Well, the ultimate result of consistency and small moments is momentum. And when it feels like you're moving at the speed of light in a positive direction, that's powerful. Imagine the power and force that you could become if you could only be consistent. Imagine just how much greater you could be if for 3 months you decided to lock in, and every single day the goals you set, you just locked in and achieved them. That's powerful, but it's something you can only get by being consistent. Most people can't lock in and achieve every single goal for a week, let alone a month, let alone 3. So if you were able to do it for 3, your life would look totally different. And if you were able to do it for 3, you could do it for 6. If you could do it for 6, you could do it for a year, and then 2, and 5, and 10, and so on and so forth. You can spread that to the people around you, and you can literally build a family full of positive momentum. What are you waiting for? But if you want that level of success, you have to be consistent in the right ways. Most people are consistent. When it comes to the majority of people, our issue isn't consistency, it's consistency in the right areas. You may consistently make poor decisions, that's consistency. What about making the right ones? What about being disciplined? What about having a structured, set plan and goals that you can follow? That's going to hit different. That's the consistency we're talking about. Not just a word, but a positive direction leading you towards those goals. Momentum most times is going to start off small, but it can build into a massive movement if you allow it to. but are you willing to start small? Are you willing to look at day one at ground zero and say, I'm ready to build, I'm ready to dig in? Or are you looking at it like, are you gonna choose to follow the narrative that today's not the day, or I'll push it to tomorrow, or maybe somebody else, or it can't be me, or why? Either way, you're making a choice. Either way, you're making a decision. Either way, the time is gonna pass. I say make the time pass doing the things you love and focus on the things that matter most. Imagine looking back on your life and knowing that you gave it your all. How many people, when they look back on their life, are truly able to say, I gave it my all. I did every single thing I could. Very few. But you could be one of those ones. You could be one of the few that makes it happen. It takes momentum. It starts with consistency, and it starts in very small moments with you. Because with the right amount of persistence and dedication, everyone can win. And just because you start off small doesn't mean you have to think and dream small. I want you to dream big. I want your goals to be massive. But the plan has to start small. The plan has to start with step one. The plan has to understand that when you're at ground zero, the very first steps are the most important. But you can't fly to the moon if the rocket ship that you built is made out of weak materials, was poorly crafted, wasn't put together with timing and touch and consistency and persistence that it takes in order to be great. What's far more likely is that you'll crash and burn. I want you to be one of those ones that reach the moon and beyond, that reach infinity and beyond. Shout out to Buzz Lightyear. I want you to reach infinity and beyond, but it starts with the moment. You can't get to infinity, you can't get to forever, you can't get to greatness, you can't get to being a 10-year veteran of something amazing before you can get to one day, one moment, one goal. But once you start to build on those goals, once you start to get the momentum, once you start to build and build and build, you'll become unstoppable. And that's what I'm hoping for you. You become unstoppable because so few people are. So few people are able to have the proper perspective and use it to build and take the action to get the momentum. Because even if you got the right mindset, are you gonna execute? The right perspective will tell you, planning is good, goal setting is good, but now we gotta execute. What about reevaluating what happened? What about when things go wrong? The right mindset is gonna keep you on track. But what's your perspective? Is your perspective one of momentum and building? Or is your perspective one of, if I don't get it the first time, I'm done? Perfectionism is dangerous. Our goal should always be excellence. But when we focus on progress over perfection, we'll build momentum. And that's ultimately what we're talking about. What happens when you add timing and precision and purpose and goals to a person who's already operating from a position of gratitude? They become unstoppable. That could be you. Because once you learn to understand and value and build momentum, you become unstoppable. It's really hard to stop a train that's moving at high speed. You're gonna be that train.